my sight reading still isn't up to snuff, and sometimes in a professional situation, I'm up against the wall with that, and I say, "Oh, give me can you give me a couple of minutes, and I'll woodshed this." But normally, I work with my ear, and I just think that I remember when we did the Blues Brothers with the John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd back in the '70s, and we had a group of very authentic musicians backing them. And one of them was Donald Duck Dunn, the bassist of Booker T and the MGs. And, so I had Southerners in the rhythm section and yet Juilliard students in the horn section. And there was always this clash. The Juilliard students would say, "Where's the music?" And Duck Dunn would say, "Music? Are you kidding?" He said, "If Elvis had come on Ed Sullivan's show and his band had been reading music, there wouldn't have been no rock and roll." And I feel that way, too. Rock and roll should be played from the heart.
Well, that's, you bring up an interesting collision there. And I was wondering, as a band leader, as someone who pulls these groups together, how do you negotiate that difference between the Juilliard students who are used to having everything on a music stand and the guys like this who say, "What do you mean?"
There's always a problem. And I'm always in a situation like that where I have players from mixed backgrounds. Even my own band on the Letterman show, the three horn players, each of them is from a different scene. I've got one trained musician, Tom Malone, who used to arrange for Gil Evans. I've got a guy, a trumpet player, Al Ches, whose background is like military drum corps, drum and bugle corps. And then I've got a sax player from the club scene in New Jersey who knows every song that I know. So they're all there for a reason. But, man, you try to put them together, and if it's right, it's magic. And if it's wrong, it's like, they're not talking to each other.
Do you find part of your role is kind of soothing the fights that happen between these guys?
Of course it is. And that's why, that sociology degree that I got from University of Toronto actually comes in handy. You have to be able to deal with people. As a band leader, a lot of it is dealing with people.
I'm speaking with Paul Shaffer. He is, as you probably know, the band leader for Late Night with David Letterman, and he is also the author of We'll Be Here for the Rest of Our Lives. It's from Doubleday. You talk about that year after college where your dad wanted you to go into the family business, which was law.
Yeah.
And you said, "Dad, I would like to try something else." What was that like when you actually said to him, "I think I've got something else going on here, and can I try it out?"
The funny thing about my parents were they were they were of just as dual mindset as I. They wanted me to have a real profession, yet they too loved show business and loved music and wanted their kid, like every Jewish kid, I guess. But with me, it seemed even more so. You'll practice, you'll play the piano, and you'll practice. And you'll thank me later. And I do. I do thank them later.
I wondered about that. As I read about your childhood, I was wondering, are you this kind of kid who was like, "Okay, I'm going to go play the piano," or did you say, "I want to go play baseball or hockey,"
of course,
or whatever?
Who didn't? Everybody did. But I would say, all right, I'll practice my lesson, then I just sit down and bash out the hits by the Four Seasons. Dawn Go Away, Big Girls Don't Cry, Sherry Baby.
I have quite a picture of you at, whatever age it was, playing all of those
instead of my lesson, and that's how, I put in the hours, but I put them in developing my ear. And whatever the original question was,
I don't even remember
it's
it.
Long gone.
But it was really about when your parents, who probably like many Jewish parents everywhere, want their child to have a profession, when you said,
"Yes,
I think my profession is not going to be law,
right,
Dad."
I said, "Dad, I was very conservative too, so I said, just give me a year and let me try it and see what happens." And he said, "This isn't a surprise. Your mother and I sort of thought you would be saying that." And I think secretly they were a little bit thrilled that I was going to give it a try. Although my mother admitted that my dad always thought I'd end up like playing at a piano bar at a summer resort.
Or the job that you first had playing in the Topless Bar, although that probably wasn't what he hoped for you.
What would be so wrong with that?
Nothing. It could be a lot of fun.
I could go back to those bars at a second and still play the same repertoire, and I'd be perfectly happy. And I think that's the thing about me that has saved me. Whatever it is, I love to play the piano, no matter where it is. And I guess when I said we'll be here for the rest of our lives, I indicate that I could just as well be, tomorrow I could play for an acrobat or a stripper. You just never know what the kind of job I have.
That pleasure in playing must serve you well in all of the different guises that you've arranged records, you've played on shows, you've played on television shows. Is there anything that you've run into that you found that you were losing that pleasure in playing?
I've always had it. Even as a kid, I I remember I used to play ballet classes just for the experience. Something in me knew, let me get the experience. And there's fun in every music. Every music is great. I think Ray Charles said that. Every music has its own thing, and you shouldn't try to hip it up and change the style of it. Play each kind of music with the credibility that it deserves. That's what I'm trying to do.
You talk in your book about, in a sense, having all of these different people like Ray Charles as your teachers.
Yeah.
And so when did you first get introduced to the music of Ray Charles, and how did you start playing that kind of music yourself?
Somehow, my dad, as a conservative lawyer in Canada, had very hip taste in jazz and music. He loved the great jazz vocalists. He turned me on to Sarah Vaughan. He loved Billy Eckstine. He loved Ray Charles, the genius. He said, this guy is a genius. Listen to this. And it seeped in, I realized that is the man with the soul. And then cut to 76 or so, and there I am on the stage of Saturday Night Live playing with Ray Charles. And this is in the book, too. And it was just amazing because I had the opportunity to play organ, soul organ, behind the genius as he sang, "Oh, What a Beautiful Morning." And I'm supposed to back him up with soul licks, and I was nervous as all get out. I couldn't play. And Ray Charles stopped the whole band in the rehearsal. Stopped the band. He said, "Organ, play it with some soul." And I almost died. I didn't know what to do. I got soul. I'm from Canada.
Maybe cold.
But I couldn't. And luckily, my dear friend, who's still a great friend till today, Howard Johnson, who was on tuba and baritone sax in that Saturday Night Live house band, he piped up for me and he said, "Ray, count it off again." He's got it. And I guess he heard in Howard's voice something that. I'm not sure, but all Ray did was count it off again, give me another chance. And this time I summoned up those memories of my dad and those Ray Charles albums, and I did my best. And I heard Ray Charles say, "Yeah, man, that's better. That's more like it." And boy, I felt so good.